Good evening, everybody. My name is Suliat Lawal, and this time around we are going to be discussing the hardening recommendation for SMPTS and POP3S. And this is for Cyber 4220, which is the cyber system security. First, we are going to start with POP3S. What POP3S stands for is the Post Office Protocol. Post Office Protocol is the method used in receiving mail in the client server protocol. It is actually inbuilt for the Hydro and the Outlook Express, and is actually used in receiving and storing emails for users. And this particular protocol is extremely simple to use, and if configured properly, you can use any type of computer to check your emails as far as it is configured properly. So the main functions of the POP3S. So admin user can configure the storage of email in a server over the period of time. Secondly, it is very simple with a high rate of success. And for POP3S, the error rate is also very minimal. Then the email must be configured to host protocol in order for POP3 to work with any email program. And the port for POP3, what it uses for connection is actually port 110. So the username you want the email to access, you can add as many users as you want to in this case. Then the next part is the advanced one, whereby you start to enabling the incoming and outgoing protocol. You are also using the SSL for incoming and outgoing connection. You're also authenticating the incoming and outgoing connections also. Then after that, what we are going to do is to make sure that we configure default email processing and synchronization. Here, the server profile incoming and outgoing email, and we also have to set appointments. Then later, we are going to configure the mailbox so that the mailbox can be used as a default, meaning that so anytime you use it, it will just come up itself. You can be able to access it automatically the way it's supposed to be. And you also have to give it administrative permission so that it can be you can for it so that for it to make changes will be extremely easy. And next after that, you also have to test the configuration of the email box. By testing it, you can be able to tell if the configuration that was done is done properly. Okay, the next thing we need to talk about is how to actually harden it. To harden it, you have to make sure that to set, like I mentioned before, an automatic startup. Then you have to give it a SSL certificate. That's when you change it from actually being just POP3 to POP3S, and you make it secure. Then the next thing you do is that in a situation where insecure logins are permitted, always make sure you analyze the IP address that is causing the traffic or the discrepancy. Then you block them so that it will be easier, like those spam emails like that. You look for the email, then you can block the spam mails so that you'll not be getting it as frequently as is you're getting it. So one thing I really found interesting in when it comes to actually configuring POP3S and even SMTP is the fact that each of them is done all at the same time. Like the configuration is done, the hardening is done, everything is done in one at one go. So any outgoing or incoming email access you want to give, you're immediately giving that access as you're actually going. Then you can the good thing about it, you can even go back to give more access to things in which you need. That's what I find very, very interesting about it. Then when it comes to hardening recommendation for POP3 in Ubuntu, we actually, for that to occur, we download the Dovecot. And Dovecot is compatible with both small and large installations, so it doesn't matter. It's very compatible. And the Dovec is also simple to set up, and no special administrative setting is needed. But to tell you the truth, when configuring Dovecot and making sure you give access to the POP3, giving access to the SMTPS, giving access to the high map, it takes a while. So it's like you also have to make sure that you are paying attention. So when you need to go back to make changes, it's you will know which code to use. Then Dovecot, another thing I like about it is the fact that it consumes little memory. Okay. So basically, how do you harden it? You have to prevent one of the ways to harden it is by preventing unwanted email delay, networks, and domains. You have to enable the helo that shows that the postfix is configured properly. So if your postfix if you configured PO3 using postfix and it's configured properly, you are good to go. So to enable all the things that you will need for this class is actually going to be very easy. You also have to enable the SSL authentication. So this is what you need to authenticate in order for you to get the secured version of it. So both of them with the TLS, both of them has to be authenticated. Then the configuration is done in the local interface, and I believe I did put the code on how you do it. Then this is also a way in which you can check the listening port, what you have open in the listening port, or what you're actually listening to. And another way to add in POP3 is by disabling the verifying. You know, like when you're trying to verify the spams that are coming always, by disabling it, you reduce the amount of attackers that are actually coming into the system. Next, I'm going to discuss about SMTPS. So by definition, is actually called Simple Mail Transfer Protocol Secure, and is a protocol used in receiving and sending mail in a more secure manner. When it comes to receiving aspect, what the protocol use is the POP3 and IMAP. I believe I already discussed this on the last one, and it is used to secure. The security is done at the transport layer using the TLS code to wrap it up. Okay. And when it comes to how it works, it uses port 25 for the SMTP relay for an unencrypted for the unencrypted and the TLS encryption port. It uses, like I mentioned, 25, 587, 25, 25. And when it comes to the secure port, this is the code that the port that it uses, which is the 4665. So basically, if you're trying to open the SMTPS port, you use the 465 code. So that's what you use in actually opening it up. Then client server model used to send message from email clients. So that's what they use the Outlook and email. Then the relay service is used to send the email to the receiving email server. And the receiving email server uses the SMTP to download incoming mails to the IP map, which is put inside the inbox of the recipient. All right, so how to configure SMTPS? So so basically you have to have the IIS Windows server on already downloaded in order. Sorry, what is already downloaded? I'm trying to get the definition of IIS Windows again, so you guys, just for refresher, it means Internet Information System. So basically, in order for you to configure the SMTP itself on Windows Server, you have to make sure that you already have the IIS window. Then you also have to make sure that you set some properties. So for these properties, on general rule, you have to make sure that the IP address must be enabled. When it comes to the server properties, you have to make under the access rule, you have to make sure that the IP address must be added. So all the IP address, meaning your actual server server address, must actually be added. Then from there, to give you another portal whereby you're able to create your domain name. Then another thing you need to do is to enable the firewall itself, which is how you're able to secure the SMTPS. Then you have to apply after securing it. So this is when you had the rule. With the rule, it is actually hard in the hard-bound rule. SMPT has to do with the outgoing emails and the incoming emails. So you add it to the hard-bound rules. Then later, the next thing you are going to do is actually to enable the start automatically. So basically, the POPS and the SMTP server are actually, the functions are the same. They do the same thing. They are configured the same way. So there is not much difference between them. But the POP3S is done in the Linux, which is the Ubuntu. The SMTPS can be done both in Ubuntu and can also be configured in Windows Server. Actually, both of them can, but depending on what you are using it for. So how to add in SMP? You have to make sure to authenticate all access users. You also have to make sure that you enable the SSL certificates. You have to make sure that you have limited access user. You also have to make sure to set limit to the message that are being received and message that are actually going out. You also have to make sure you block unwanted IP addresses that you know are causing discrepancy on your Windows server. And another thing is so basically now I've written the code of where the hardening takes place. So once you install the POS postfix is being installed, this first code that I put here, let me make it clear for you guys. But you have to put make sure you put sudo nano, then you put this code. Okay, this is where the postfix is actually being configured. Then to change the SMTP, the POS and everything, you actually are going to do it here. This is where you actually enable them. so that you can be able to add more security to it. Then the next code here is where you authenticate your username and password. You create it to create more security into the Ubuntu server. Then after everything is done, you have to update it, you have to save it, and then after that you have to restart. Then once you restart, then you are actually going to test it to make sure it's working. Then once you test it to make sure it's working, then everything will be okay. And here is my resources. Thank you.